All right.
Bases dropped a little later than usual. Soccer Down here live March 10th from Mexico City and Atlanta, Georgia. John Nelson alongside Jason Longshore. What's up, John?
I imagine that the weather is better there than it is here. It is kind of sprinkly, silly, rainy. Can't quite make up its mind what it wants to do here on a Tuesday.
It is sunny. It is warm. It's pretty nice in
Uh-huh.
Mexico City.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's good. There is that thing called smog that's not ideal.
Hmm.
That's a thing, and there's also, as I'm learning, that thing called altitude that is noticeable as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Whew.
And actually, yeah. No, Chris Hutchison out of the blocks wanted to know how the pollution is right now. He says it's typically the worst time of year for it owing to the annual thermal inversion that sets in.
Thermal inversion. I am not up to speed on thermal inversions.
Yeah, welcome to meteorology down here.
Yeah. It's definitely noticeable, and for somebody who has sinus issues in general, and with Atlanta's weather being the epitome of flipping and flopping all winter slash early spring,
Yeah.
it's definitely noticeable. It's different. I mean, it's not unbearable. It's just you can feel it. And I'm somebody who doesn't have a ton of experience being at altitude for long periods of time, so yeah, it's definitely something that you notice. And the smog probably isn't
But
helping the
no, I
altitude
mean,
portion either. So yeah,
no, no. That I'm used to in places like Los Angeles because you have the mountain range that kind of surrounds the city, and if you get closer to downtown, the mountains kind of keep the smog in, and you really have to be cognizant of where you are at all times, especially in the summer when you get that the big run of days without rain. But now
right.
this will be admittedly my first time as well when I head down there tomorrow.
Yeah, and I mean it's gonna be tough for an Atlanta United squad that comes in and has to deal with it in a short period of time. Every team that's come in here to play at the Estadio Azteca has talked about it. It's very, very difficult to adjust to, and you're gonna hit a point in the match where Atlanta being early in the season as well, this maybe hits a little harder. You're going to hit a portion where the lungs get really heavy, the legs go, and it'll be difficult for Atlanta to play at its best. You've got to manage those moments, and that's what this game's going to be about tomorrow night, in my opinion. It's going to be a lot of game management from everybody involved, players, coaching staff, and you're just trying to handle it and give yourself the best opportunity to win in Kennesaw and take care of business. If you come in, I think, in a naive way, and luckily you've got a group of players that have experience in big competitions, not even throwing the altitude and air quality into it for a second, just managing first legs on the road against difficult opponents, you've got players and staff who've been through it. So that will help a ton in managing it. But managing the match is going to be the big conversation tomorrow.
You know, we do have folks who have been wanting to ask questions. We can get to that a little later on, but yeah, you're going to get to that point where you've got a team in Club America who's used to it. They've already had their apertura. They're in their clausura right now, and uh, obviously tomorrow we'll get probably more into the X's and O's aspect of it. But as someone who saw them on the weekend, they've got a lot of injuries. They have uh, folks who are being looked at for other reasons, but there's a lot of stuff in play tomorrow for both Atlanta United with their injuries and their depth on display, and Club America with their injuries and their depth on display.
Yeah, dominating record.com.mx, one of the leading sports papers here in Mexico, dominating that right now is the conversation around Renato Ibarra, a top player for Club America in the past, no longer a player with Club America. They have terminated their contract with him due to an arrest related to a domestic violence incident. And this could go to a legal case, as these things can go from between the club and the player. But the reports this morning were that the contract was going to be terminated because of breaching clauses in it that could cast a bad light on the club, et cetera, et cetera. So we will see where that goes. That's been the number one conversation, and that's in some ways distracted from an injury crisis that Club America is facing and where they are at the moment. You go back and look at that match with Pumas. It was a 3-3 draw from Friday night. Pumas went up 1-0. Then Club America turned that around, was up 2-1 in the 73rd minute, then gave up 2 goals in a 3-minute span to fall behind 3-2 before equalizing in the 94th to get a point. They started in a 4-4-2, and Miguel Herrera's kind of having to piece it together at the moment. Paul Aguilar had a good night at right back, was involved in a couple of goals. You got goals from Henry Martin. He had the equalizer in stoppage time, starting up top. Leo Suarez got a goal. He's a newcomer to the team this year. Fernando Viñas got a goal. It's a team that at the moment is kind of lacking the star power that we're used to seeing with a Club America because of some of these issues. One player that I've been really impressed with recently, he's a young player who's come through at Club America, is Sebastian Cordova. Cordova's 22, and he has been playing a good bit. He's not a huge goal scorer, but he's just, to me, a very talented player starting to come into his own. He's feeling, I think, very confident at the moment. He's in a good run of form. Cordova's a player that can cause Atlanta some problems. Against Pumas, he played out wide. We've also seen him play centrally. Their number 17, Cordova, is a player to watch. I think another big question that we'll be looking at with this is the return of Roger Martinez. And you'll remember that name from this show many, many times. Roger Martinez was linked with moves to Europe. Didn't happen. That's what he wanted. He was linked at one point with a move to the LA Galaxy. I don't know how far that conversation got. He was linked quite a bit with a move to Inter Miami multiple times. And the way it's that I've seen it reported on this side of it is that Martinez wanted a move to Europe. Didn't get it. He did not want the move to MLS, but the club wanted to sell him because it was a lucrative offer. He did not want to go. So up until Friday, he had been on the outskirts of the squad, training on his own. He wasn't really part of the group because they wanted to move him. Well, all these injuries, all these issues, he came back into the squad in training on Wednesday and came off the bench on Friday. Is he going to move straight into the starting lineup? It wouldn't surprise me. And another one is Giovanni Dos Santos, who came off the bench on Friday. Would not surprise me if he's in the starting lineup tomorrow as well.
The Suarez goal was a beautiful goal on a set piece. And for me, in watching that match and trying to get acquainted with current state of play, obviously that's something that I'm going to be, keeping an eye on in the match upcoming is set pieces in general and what kind of range the shooters are going to have for Club America. But in giving up the 2 goals in quick succession to go from being 2-1 up to 3-2 down, you saw some passes that were right on target, that were line splitting. And I think that in my dime store analysis, I think that those are opportunities that Atlanta United can take full advantage of in splitting lines and getting behind the back and putting some shots on net and hopefully shots in the back of the net from an Atlanta United perspective.
Yeah, Suarez is an interesting player. He's Argentine. He's 23, new with Club America this season. He joined in the winter, and he was developed at Boca Juniors and only played a couple of times for Boca at a very young age. At 18, he was transferred to Villarreal. Spent most of his time in Spain with their B squad. Only 9 games with Villarreal's first team, played nearly 80 times with the second team. Spent some time on loan in 2018 at Valladolid, spent some time on loan in 2019 at Mallorca, helped them get promotion, and it was about 2 months ago that he signed with Club America. So he's integrating into the squad. He is one of I think a larger generation of players that we're starting to see, and we'll see it with MLS as well, that leave for Europe at a young age from South America and don't make it entirely and have an opportunity to come back to a big club like Club America. There's going to be clubs like Atlanta United, like LAFC, others that are willing to spend the kind of money to where these players who aren't seeing regular time but are talented players, don't have anywhere to play, can come here and play in these leagues and these competitions and I think do really well. Suarez is a guy who spent time with Argentina's youth national teams up through the U20s. He's a talented player, but sometimes that talented player doesn't necessarily click at a club and didn't click at Villarreal, so it's Club America's gain. It's actually really smart work in the transfer market to go get a player of Leo Suarez's abilities.
When it comes to this particular match, and I know that you and Mike and the team hit the ground yesterday, have you been able to gauge level of coverage of the match itself, not the off the field stuff, but the match itself and level of excitement, level of wariness, or whatever the levels are when it comes to coverage? What has coverage been like down there?
It'll ramp up today with both teams training, with press conferences. This is when it'll ramp up ahead of tomorrow. So, not too much in what I saw, quickly yesterday when I got here. But I think today with media availability is when it will really start to pick up.
Nathan Pugh this morning has chimed in, and we do have folks who have chimed in for the 9 to 11 Mountain Time version of soccer down here, or the 9 o'clock start for soccer down here.
Actually,
Mountain Time. Nathan Pugh asks.
I'm a little confused.
He says,
hold on one second. I'm a little confused on the time zone thing. Is Mexico City in the Mountain Zone, or is it in the Central Zone? But a daylight savings time dilemma has created the 2-hour difference.
I think you might be onto it. So let me.
I think that's it. Because it threw me off. I thought it was going to be an hour, and it's 2 hours.
Let's see.
Sorry, Nathan, to hijack.
Yeah, current time in Mexico. No worries. But it's like, no, but it's like you're trying to figure out. See, Mexico City. See, I do Mexico City time change in the Google machine, and all I'm getting is, well, yeah, it happens, instead of like the when. But no, I think that seriously. 4 time zones, previously used 3, effective February 1st, 2015. Daylight saving time begins locally first Sunday in April. Okay, so you're in that nether region, kind of like Britain, where it's not a universal planetary thing. So you've got another month where you're in the central time zone, but you're 4 hours behind because Mexico hasn't changed over yet.
Yeah. Well, 2 hours behind Atlanta, and I've only got a couple more days where I've got to figure that out. So it'll be okay. I'll work. I'll make it work.
Yes. There you go. So
Nathan Pugh
2 hours for another month for those of you. He did, but 2 hours for another month for those of you in Mexico City. He said, Estadio Azteca is a stadium of bad and polluted voodoo. Regardless, I have a sneaky feeling that we'll score and be very competitive. Why? And the appropriate GIF is below. He says, seeing Miguel Herrera lose his mind is fun.
Yes.
B, PT and Barco are playing very well at the moment.
Yes.
3, why not? Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
Okay. I don't know if why not qualifies as top analysis, but we can go with it. Pitti and Barco are playing really well, and in games like this, they're going to be critical. It's the Estadio Azteca still has a mystique. It's still a scary place for American teams to come into, but let's be real about this. In the last decade, you've seen the U.S. national team beat Mexico in a friendly. It was a friendly, but they still beat them, and they got a draw in qualifying here as well, which doesn't happen very often. So, it's scary, but maybe it's not quite as scary as it's been. And then I think with an Atlanta United team that is not that dependent on, U.S. national team players. Maybe it doesn't have the same appeal. Maybe for guys like Pity Martinez, for Ezequiel Barco, it has a different appeal because Estadio Azteca has been very, very good to Argentina, and that's where they lifted a World Cup trophy. So maybe it has a different motivation for Pity and Barco, and they come into this match flying. I will take that side of it.
Austin Arvidsson this morning, and this may change tomorrow, so it may need a redress for the game day show. Who do you think gets the start in the midfield tomorrow night against Club America? Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
Hard to say. I mean, I think there's the potential for a tactical change and maybe getting another central midfielder in to defend and be ready to play in transitional moments. You could see a line of 4. You could see 3 center backs. I think a lot of things are on the table right now, and it's one of those kind of games that honestly you might not get a decision on the lineup until a couple hours before kick. It's You've got a lot of different elements that factor into it. I mean, we know the injuries, but you're trying to incorporate a player like Mateo Sosetu into the team, and does he see the field more tomorrow, or does he come off the bench? Do you have Manuel Castro as a substitute, or do you roll the dice and throw him out? I think it's going to be a substitute since we haven't seen him yet. But in normal situations, that wouldn't even come into play. But with the injuries that Atlanta's facing, things are a little different. So it's going to be a tough call. It's going to be a tough call. You do have a player in Jeff Lorenowitz who has been on the bench and has been in big moments and can handle big moments, and he is rested. So he can factor into a couple different spots. He can play as a center back. He can play as a holding midfielder. You've got some options. You've got some different options with this group. So I don't know. I honestly, and that's what's so hard about predicting lineups with this group right now, is there's so many things in flux. I don't know. It could be a 4-3-3, it could be a 3-4-3, it could be a 3-5-2, it could be a 4-5-1. I really don't know what direction Frank de Boer is going to go with in this. And while that's something that on the Atlanta side you're like, oh man, I don't know what we're going to do. This is a little scary. If you're Club America, it's got to be a little scary too, because what you've seen so far has been mostly 3-4-3, but Club America's staff is very intelligent, and they're going to know you're missing pieces, you're incorporating pieces, and there's a lot of things that could change ahead of this match tomorrow.
Which lends itself to Ricky Ricardo's question. He wanted to know how much of Josetu do we see tomorrow night, and who would he be in for?
Well, a lot of it depends on the shape, because he might not be in for, if you look at the lineup from Saturday, he might not be in for Pitti or Barco, which I would not expect, or Heinemann or Remedi, which I kind of wouldn't expect either, because I thought Heinemann played really well and Remedi had his best game of 2020. So are you going to change the shape to incorporate another midfielder and move pieces around? You could. You very well could, because this is a game where, and this is something that comes up a lot about possession and team and people getting worked up about Atlanta having patience in possession. This is a game where you want some patience in possession because you want to rest with the ball. You don't want to have to go chasing Club America all over the Estadio Azteca's pitch and running yourself into the ground and trying to breathe in, air that is different and at altitude, you want the ball. So I can very well see a situation where you have those five. You have Heineman, Remedi, Hosetu, Pitti, and Barco, and you move other pieces around to accommodate because you want players, you want soccer players on the field who are comfortable with the ball at their feet. And in the limited time we've seen Mateus Hosetu, that's something that is obvious. The guy just cherishes the ball. And that's what these players do, when Pitti and Barco and Heineman and Remedi, all from different backgrounds, Hosetu, throw him in too. These are guys who just love to have the ball. And in a game like this one, that's critical. That's absolutely critical against an Aguila squad that is athletic and can get out and get out on the run. You want to a lot of times slow the game down and knock it around and just pass it around them and keep passing and keep the ball moving. Get them a little tired, get them a little disoriented, chasing you, and then hurt them. And that's what Hosetu could bring to this group is one more midfielder comfortable on the ball who also has that attacking mindset of breaking a game open. So I hope we see a good bit of him. Do we see him from the start? It's a big ask. The biggest question would be his fitness because he has been involved in training camp for quite a bit for Atlanta United, but he's also had to go back and forth to Rio to get his visa done, and he's missed some time training here in the last couple of weeks. So is he going to be 90 minutes fit at altitude? You wish he was. I don't know if he is. And you might not be able to get him from the start because of that. Not because you don't want to, but because of that. So, I don't know. I'd love to see it. I don't know how realistic it is due to fitness issues.
James McClatchy is in this morning, and he asks, what if Atlanta United sets up a block to keep the score down? Would it be a mistake?
I don't think it would be a mistake in general, but I don't know if that's how Atlanta plays comfortably. I don't think they are a team that sits in a low block and doesn't leave it. I think there will be more times that you will see Atlanta sit deeper in this one. Uh, Conditions, game state, 180 minutes, preparing for Kennesaw. Like you've got a lot of things that factor into that. But yeah, I think you'll see them sit deeper. But in terms of playing completely in a low block, I just don't know if that's how this team plays its best. I think they will want to get out and pick their moments. And that's going to be the key, picking the right moments and making them count. I could see a game that looks a little more like Motagua in the first leg, where they sat deeper, but they still played in the middle third and advanced into the final third, just not as often as we're used to seeing. I think it's going to be more of that than completely sitting back and only playing on the counter. I don't think that's how this team wants to function.
Kefsey is in this morning and says, go ahead and invert your goose at kickoff. You'll need to continue to make big saves to keep everything manageable. I hope tomorrow is the first of many match days where all the pressure going forward for Atlanta leads to a goal for an outside back, be it Jake, Brooks, or gimme one.
Yeah, that's a big key. Is I think the outside play in this 3-4-3 with Lennon, with Mulraney, potentially with Bello in that mix, potentially with Castro maybe playing in a role like that. It's something that we can see more from. I think Mulraney has adjusted to it pretty well, considering the defensive side of the game wasn't his strong suit, and I think it's gotten better every match we've seen. I think Lennon is starting to get more comfortable with this group, and it's just getting to know those guys and them also taking their chances well. And when Mulraney can beat somebody on the dribble, then produce either a killer pass, a killer cross, or a killer shot. When Lennon can get in behind with his speed, make something happen, it's the production, the final play that can be a little bit stronger from the outside. I think defensively, I was maybe a little more worried about the wingbacks from a defensive standpoint, and they've been good. They've been very good. And that's what you want early in a season. You can build up defense quicker than you can build up chemistry in the attack. That'll come. And if you're coming from a strong position, a strong foundation of an organized team that can defend well as a unit, you're going to be in a better position to succeed.
News from outside CONCACAF Champions League from Bartimus Prime for his Tuesday thoughts. He says, I know it's not in the SDH footprint, but seeing that the Richmond Kickers renovated City Stadium continues a great trend in USL, with clubs reinvigorating existing infrastructure instead of the larger investment of new construction, #sustainability. Bart, just to let you know, and for those that don't know, ahead of the 2020 USL League One season, upgrades include new field lighting, fiber installed inside the stadium to bring Wi-Fi into it to enhance the fan experience, and a new field irrigation system. And just to let everyone know, early next week, we will be catching up with Richmond Kickers chairman Rob Ukrop, just for a Soccer Down Here 1v1, as they get ready for the League One season and about this. So Bart has been reading our show notes.
Nicely done. Good job, Bart.
Yeah. So,
no, I'm excited about
and he
Richmond.
Sent the article.
I'm excited about Richmond and what they're doing with City Stadium, a historic venue. And I'm excited about a club like Richmond and finding, new ways to succeed and grow in, 20 plus years of their history. Charleston Battery is another one that we're seeing kind of enter a new era right now. It's great to see, some of those clubs that were around even before MLS continue to thrive and grow in a different landscape. It is different, but they're still finding their place and having their effects on their local communities.
The last upgrades before these, and these are 7 figures to the left of the decimal point, so millions of dollars are being invested in City Stadium back in 1994 for hosting the 1995 College Cup, the NCAA Men's Soccer Final Four. The League One season starts March 28th, so we're a couple of weeks away. And so with this news that came out, we reached out to the Kickers, and we'll be catching up with them early next week.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get Jessica Charman on the line and talk about Saturday's Atlanta United win, look ahead to tomorrow, even maybe peek ahead to Kansas City coming to the Benz this weekend. We'll be right back after this.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every year, millions of Americans are exposed to a contagious virus.
What is this virus? It's stigma. Stigma promotes an environment of shame,
fear, and silence,
which prevents millions of people from seeking help.
But there's good news.
The National Alliance on Mental Illness believes stigma towards mental illness is 100% curable.
So do yourself and everyone a favor.
Go to curestigma.org and get tested for stigma.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, live from many, many places today. I'm in Mexico City. John's in Atlanta. And Jess, where are you?
I'm in Peachtree City, town of golf carts.
Are you on a golf cart?
I wish I was. No, my Honda doesn't compare to a golf cart, unfortunately.
Some of those golf carts are pretty tricked out, so...
Her Honda is not one of those vehicles, though.
No. It's all good. Let's get into a little bit of a recap of the weekend. I want to get your perspective on Atlanta's win over Cincinnati. 2-1, went up 2-0, gave up a goal to Yuya Kubo. And let's start there. Hashtag GK Union. What did you think about that shot from Kubo that seemed to knuckle both ways? It was kind of bonkers.
Look, I'm all for goalkeepers, and I know I've given Brad a hard time in the past, but I think you have to look at the defensive line and the midfield and the press before you ever look at the goalkeeper on the actual shot. I think there was far too much time. From where I was sat, it looked like the player that took the shot had forever to wind up and shoot it from distance. Obviously, make him back, Brad would have wanted to watch that one a little better, but I think the actual hit has that long to make a connection on the ball. At the end of the day, they're going to find the back of the net. But when I mind and think about it, and I made a tweet about it at the time of the game, as an ambulance passes me, so just careful if you can't hear me. But at the time of the game, I remember thinking there was a miscommunication. I believe it was with Meza and Guzan that led to someone heading it and keeping the ball in play, where I thought Guzan could have had it in his hands. So if I'm going to blame anything goalkeeper-wise, I would say that there was a lack of communication there that actually led to a poor clearance that led to Cincy turning over the ball. But as you can see, plenty of steps back. So for me, it just has to be a quicker press on the ball for the shot to close it down. And whether that comes from Guzan communicating, hey, step to the ball, but our defenders and midfielders need to do a better job of closing quicker. And it's not the first time we've seen goals conceded like that, where it looks like outside the 18-yard box, players have too much time in possession on the shot.
Jess, as a keeper, what is it like? And I guess this is kind of letting folks into what it's like to be an athlete in game state and things like that. But what is it like for goalkeepers to get in step with defenders, and that whole dynamic? What is it like to work with defenders who all have different personalities and different ways of communicating to make sure that you're always going to be on the same page no matter who's there directly in front of you? What's it like to work through those relationships?
Honestly, it's painstaking. It takes time, and that's why in games you don't see substitutions unless there's injuries occur to the back line. You want to keep your back line as consistent as possible for as long as possible, because different defenders have different style of plays, and it takes time to learn to trust your back line. And we can't forget that Guzan has played with different defenders all season. We've seen changes with injury, we've seen changes with personnel based on last season, and it takes time to build those relationships and build those trusts. So when you look at the goal and you look at the miscommunication, potentially that's one that a player that's played with Guzan longer knows he's coming to put his gloves on. And maybe that's why Meza didn't leave it, because he doesn't have that relationship or that bond yet. And as we continue to have a cursed back line in terms of injuries, you have to wonder how that's going to break up that relationship. It's going to break up that chemistry in the back line. And that's so key. And obviously you train together, but it's not the same as being in a full stadium, as feeling that match day pressure. So it's going to take time. We have to be patient. And when you play a style like Atlanta United does, with playing out the back defensively, it's going to show more often. In my opinion, we might have more of those errors. We might have more of those miscommunications because these players aren't used to potentially knowing, okay, Brad wants the ball back to his left foot constantly, or Brad's going to come to that. So I would watch this space because I don't think it'll be the first miscommunication error we see with this ever-changing back line.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to be realistic with a group that I think would have started the season if everybody was healthy with Miles Robinson, Fernando Meza, Franco Escobar. Robinson hasn't played in MLS yet. He hasn't played in a competitive match yet. Escobar has played some, but he also left the Nashville match. Lawrence Weicker replaced him. Now he's out. I mean, you had 3 dedicated center backs available for training yesterday, with George Campbell being the newest one who made his debut on Saturday. Jeff Larinowitz can also play in the back, but that's where you're at the moment. So it's been a different back line pretty much every match. And while we've kind of picked on the goal to start with, Atlanta United's defense as a whole has been really good, I think, in general, but even better in light of all the mixing and matching that Frank de Boer's had to do.
Yeah, I think the way they've dealt with adversity has been fantastic, and I think you can see that Frank does have a defensive mind in the way that the team hasn't been thrown, bar a couple of errors. You have to think about the consistency that they've defended with and the way they have built out from the back. As much as it gives my heart palpitations sometimes with some of the cross-goal passes when Brad's out the net, it works right now, and they're continuing to do what they're being asked to do, and it's impressive that personnel can change, but the style of play continues, which shows that they are all on the same page.
Jess, I don't know if this was used stylistically or not, but for a keeper, some keepers like to think that they are attacking midfielders or strikers. Others think that working the ball with their feet is something that they don't want to do under any circumstance, don't trust what's going on below the knees or anything like that. What kind of a keeper are you, or were you? And I guess you can still say are, because of, you do things just kind of off the cuff sometimes these days as an adult. But what's it like? How is it for a keeper to work with their feet if it's not something that's really in their wallet? What's it like for a keeper to have to do things that they're not a fan of?
Horrendous at first, and that's honestly, when I first came over here, I was a good shot stopper, good communication. One of the things I honestly struggled with wasn't like my goal kicks or my punts. I had good area on that, but it was dealing with the ball at my feet under high pressure. It's nerve-wracking, and I would say that now, based on goalkeeping courses I've taken and coaching I've done, it's something we're starting at goalkeepers with a really young age now. And oftentimes we're not specializing goalkeepers until they're older, which is a blessing in some ways because they're getting more touches on the pitch, but it's a curse because, let's be honest, you need to be learning to dive properly from a young age. So I think it's one of those where you've got benefits, but you've also got negatives with not specializing goalkeepers. But for me, it was definitely something I struggled with at first. And I went to a college that wanted to be playing out the back all the time, that sort of did that Atlanta United style, invited the high pressure. And for the first season, I was, how do I put it politely, cacking myself every time the ball was at my feet and I was being high pressed. It is out your comfort zone, but it's not something you can't improve on. It's never too late to learn to have that comfort of the ball at your feet. And one thing that my coach had me do was, even though I was a college goalkeeper, I was going out and playing pickup on the field. I was going to play adult league in the off season, in the spring season, to work on my footwork. And that's what's led to me now being more confident with the ball at my feet. It's a repetition thing. But you have to remember, I was 18, 19 doing that. It's a lot more different for these goalkeepers who are in their 30s and have grown up in a time where potentially, I mean, the back pass rule didn't change until I think the year I was born. Was it 94 the back pass rule was? Or how long was the back pass rule?
I think it was 92, 93, because the Euros in 92, I think, were the last competition that used it.
So you've got to think some of these people in their lifetime, potentially when they were starting as goalkeepers, actually weren't even allowed, or they were allowed to pick up the ball. So it's definitely something that now we're training a different breed of goalkeepers that are comfortable with their feet. And I think we'll start to see nearly all goalkeepers able to use the ball at their feet. But now when you watch you can tell those that didn't grow up playing on the field, and it makes a big difference.
Well, let's take it to the flip side as to why this is happening and why it's become such a big part of the modern game is when you do break that pressure, and the goalkeeper has to be critical in teams being able to play out of the back. You can't have a player that you're afraid to give it to, but when you do that, the chances that you can create are so much stronger. And I think we've seen Atlanta United, invite teams in over the last few years where you have teams step up higher and you want to invite that. So when you break that first line, it's easier to then go forward. It's not just because people think this is the way you should play. There's a really important reason for playing out of the back and playing through pressure.
Yeah, and it creates that space over the top. We see it so often that potentially Atlanta plays 3 or 4 passes horizontally so that they can then get that chipped ball over the top to a free winger because they create that space. You're also tiring out the front line. It's exhausting for those forwards having to press high constantly for very little reward. And of course, you're taking a risk. Of course, there's going to be the odd turnover, but in the long run, the opportunities it creates outweighs that. But on the flip side, and one thing that I feel like I repeat like a broken record is we have to have more variation. It can't be that every time it becomes too predictable. When you switch things up, it's on those switches or those changes of method. Sometimes you dump it long and it catches people off guard. Just because your coach tells you continually to play out the back doesn't mean that these players can't make autonomous decisions on the pitch where they see those openings. So I would like to see a little bit more variety at times where we do switch things up and dump it forward sometimes, even if it's not the pretty thing to do.
What other takeaways did you have, Jess, from the Atlanta match going up against Cincinnati? It was full points and another win for the Stripes at home, but what else stuck out for you?
I think it's that winner's mentality we talk about. Sometimes they're not pretty wins, but they're gritty wins, 2-2-1s, and that's a good thing for us to see that we can change personnel, we can change who's on the pitch, but we're still grinding out results. So I like to see that. And I thought that, I feel bad bringing it up, but Adam Jam was just frustrating for me to watch, not because of how he played, but just because of how the team played with him. I have a great new seat now. I posted about it, where I get a much better angle to watch the game, where I can see the runs he's making. I thought he was working his butt off, getting into good position, and there were times where he was the clear better pass, and instead we looked for Barco, instead we looked for Pity, and I get it. He's a player that these players haven't necessarily played with in time. Hopefully his hard work will pay off, but you would have liked to have seen the team using all their personnel on the pitch and picking the right option all the time.
Yeah, that's the tough thing whenever a new face comes in is building those connections. And we saw another new face in the second half, Mateus Rossetto. What do you think of his debut in competitive action?
I mean, I think he just makes, and I read a tweet, I think it was from Kevin Egan, he's one of those players that makes complicated things look very easy. His touch on the ball is insane. I was enjoying watching him warm up. His footwork is just magical, and when you watch those subs warming up, oftentimes they're just playing around with the ball, but the way he can make that ball move is inhuman sometimes. And I'm excited to see what he's got. Potentially he's not match fit. He had to deal with a lot of time with his visa getting sorted out. But I'm very excited to see what he can offer. I think he's got a different dynamic, and his footwork and his skill base just looks insane.
Chris Hutchison this morning has said that gritty wins are pretty wins, but now as everything shifts to Mexico City and altitude and the Estadio Azteca, Jess, did you ever have to play at altitude, or was your stuff pretty much all sea level?
Everything's sea level competitively, but obviously I spoke about when I was in Colombia at altitude, and that is no joke. You cannot train for that. I mean, I'm in pretty good shape in terms of my day job working in a gym and working out, but when I went to Colombia and played at 5,000 feet, I think it was, maybe even 6,000 feet at times, I thought I was going to die. It was insane. The difference in your endurance is huge, and considering a lot of those players would have played 90 minutes or at least played 45 minutes on the weekend, then to play here with that quick recovery time and then to play again on Saturday, I don't envy the players, that's for sure.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to find the balance for this group. What are your expectations tomorrow?
I just hope everyone stays fit. I don't like to predict against Atlanta, but being realistic, I don't think we're going to come out of that one with a win, but it's a two-legged game, which is a good thing. I think if we can stay in it, keep a goal in it, maybe pick up an away goal, that would be really helpful. And honestly, just keep the game alive before Kennesaw, because on that home pitch, in home territory, you never know what can happen as long as the game is still in realistic sights.
Jess, Nathan Pugh actually has a soccer over there question this morning, and he asks, how big of a howler did Ederson have? Loves playing with his feet and can't throw.
Yeah, it's, again, distribution. If you're not timing stuff right. I just, honestly, watching goalkeeper errors, it hurts my heart a little bit, but it also, you've got to imagine that these goalkeepers, it happens to everyone. So it definitely makes me feel better about the few howlers I had in college watching these rich professional goalkeepers make as big a mistakes as I have made in my past.
It's so tough. I mean, it's just a different mindset now with what goalkeepers are being asked to do. It's not just make saves. It's not just, deal with crosses. It's so much more. And a guy like Pep and what he's asking his goalkeepers to do, I mean, you have to be almost even more talented than a field player, because you have to be able to play on the field, but you also have to be able to do the goalkeeper specific stuff. It's such a specialized position. It's so difficult.
And it was De Gea as well recently that had his possession with his feet charged down as well, right? I remember seeing that one too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so difficult because your mind has to be on positioning at all times, ready for shots. But you've also got to be ready for your defenders to play it back. You never know. So who would be a goalkeeper? Hey, they say we're the crazy ones.
Oh, no, that part's true.
Well, I'm down with that. But no, it's you look at how multidimensional keepers have to be these days. And I think that gets lost sometimes when folks are looking at just strictly position players, because you have position players who have to have a skill set of A, B, C, D, and E. And now keepers these days, as you mentioned, Jess, it's not just one aspect. It's not just making sure that you're diving correctly and that you're parrying at the right angle and have the full 270 degrees in front of you to sit there and figure out what direction you need to push the ball if you can't hang on to it. It's now making sure that you can dribble a little bit, get out of a jam, sit there and launch, get it over that first line. It's a multi-dimensional thing now for keepers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to think there's only so much you can fit in a training session. So all sorts of things for goalkeepers to be thinking about. So like I say, I think that we're all welcome to our opinions, but when it comes to goalkeeping opinions, we always need to take it with a pinch of salt as well.
Yeah, it's a different kind of pressure. It's just a different kind of situation. Let's compare the goalkeepers in this one tomorrow night, because they are very different in style and stature, with Brad Guzan and Memo Ochoa. You've had a chance to see Memo Ochoa over the years. He's been maybe Mexico's most accomplished goalkeeper. What are your thoughts on Ochoa's style?
I think he's just unique in how he plays. I think that it's going to be a different style of play, but he's a great shot stopper. He works with a really difficult back line, but I think that Atlanta United needs to try and capitalize on anything that he might parry out, follow in on everything, because from what I've seen in the past, he's not someone that holds on to stuff all the time. It's more of the camera saves.
Well, and with someone like an Ochoa, it's hard to get a book on him because is unconventional a good word when it comes to Ochoa stylistically, or just multidimensional? I'm trying to figure out the right word here, because I don't think you can have a book on Ochoa really, or if you do, it's rather thick.
He's not a goalkeeper that follows everything that you learn in the ABC of goalkeeping, if that makes sense. It doesn't look, his techniques are often not what you as a goalkeeper coach would want to see from your player, but it's effective, it's impactful, and it's worked because, he's represented his country. He's played at a very high level consistently. How old is he now? He's getting on a little bit, right? I think he's mid-30s.
Yeah, mid-30s.
But he's still playing, which which is a fantastic thing for him. He's playing, he's consistent, but like I say, I wouldn't say that his technique is always what I would like to see as a goalkeeper coach.
Yeah, I mean, tell me if you think this is fair. Like, on the field, you see a lot of players who play by feel, and it's hard to take that away from them. But goalkeepers, like, the training is so intense. You see goalkeepers, for the most part, technique is such a strong thing because it has to be consistent. You don't see many goalkeepers who really do it by feel. Ochoa, he seems like he's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, he almost seems creative.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every save you see of his is a different type of save. There's no consistent pattern. So Jordan Pickford, and Pickford's been criticized for it, but Pickford isn't someone that holds on to things, but he always parries, and he parries into a certain area.
Right.
Ochoa, 1 minute he'll try and catch something that you're like, how on earth is he catching that? The next thing you'll see him, parry it over the crossbar when you think he should be catching it. He comes for crosses sometimes, he doesn't for others. It works for him, but if I was his goalkeeper coach, I would be struggling because for me, it doesn't look like he doesn't listen. It's worked for him, but he doesn't follow the regular pattern for a goalkeeper. And that is a very odd thing because goalkeeping is about angles. Goalkeeping is almost math. It sounds crazy to say it like that, but a lot of goalkeeping is angles and it's degrees and it's the trajectory of the ball and watching the flight of the ball. It should almost be cookie cutter pattern when it comes to goalkeepers. But he plays almost like a Latin flair player in terms of a number 10 as a goalkeeper. So those two things to me are very contradictory, but like I say, he's an effective goalkeeper and I'm very much looking forward to when I get to watch him play in Kennesaw.
Well, and there's a certain level of, I think, artistry is the word that popped into my head because you have artists who are forwards, you have artists who are strikers, you have artists who are midfielders. And I think that what you see with Ochoa might be frustrating for a goalkeeper coach who is, who has someone like Memo Ochoa between the sticks. And I think that there is a flair there. There's an artistry there. And when you see it and it comes off and he's incredibly successful at it, you're impressed with it and you sit there and you file it away. But then there are those moments that drive the hashtag GK Union crazy, where I'm sure that if he just did something in the quote end quote, textbook way, it would have been less trouble for him to do. And it ends up being a howler or it ends up being some kind of a negative.
Exactly. It's like an Igita scorpion kick all over again. You think that's incredible. What have you done? But then you think, what on earth have you actually done? It works for him. But as an Atlanta United fan, you have to think that during 180 minutes minimum of soccer, there's going to be one of those moments where you're like, oh, we can capitalize on this. And if I was Atlanta United, I would be focusing on making sure you're always following up on stuff, making sure you've got someone as a poacher there, because you never know what might happen, whether he's going to drop it, whether he's going to parry it, whether he's going to spend too long on the ball, whether he's going to do 6 step overs as you close him down. So you've got to be alert and you want to have that high press on a goalkeeper like him.
Yeah, you also want to put a goalkeeper with Ochoa's size under pressure, and whether that's from corners, from set pieces, you want to make him deal with big bodies in traffic, and that's something that he has consistently struggled with.
Smash.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Atlanta United's typical style, but when you have a striker like Adam John, when you can get center backs forward, if George Campbell or Jeff Lorenowitz are on the field, these are guys who can go in and create a little bit of havoc in front of him. And if there's a weakness to Ochoa's game, that's generally been it over the years.
And this is something I would say, I think I'm going against Goalkeeper Union saying this, but the first time we get a corner, I would give up a foul. I would let him know you're there. I would leave an arm in, stand in front of him, get called for a foul, but just let him know that you're there, because next time he's not going to be so relaxed coming for something. It's always going to be in the back of his mind. So I wouldn't be mad at my defender or my center forward for giving up a foul on the goalkeeper early, just to get him that little bit shaky before the game has even really started.
You're going to get kicked out of GK Union for that.
Please don't listen to me.
Let me ask you this, Jess, and this was something that we saw Ochoa do this past weekend on Friday night. How difficult is a double save?
Oh, you got to think about it. It's already exhausting. Think about burpees, right? When you do a burpee and you have to get off of the ground, that's basically what goalkeeping is. It's constant burpees. So you've gone down, you've made a save. Not only do you have to think about where the ball is, you have to now think about how you're going to get back up, how you're going to move, how you're going to get another body part in the way. I mean, double saves, triple saves, they're glorious to look at, but it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of energy. It's not just hopping up off the ground. You've got to think about what position you're landing in, and you're having to get up off of your side and move across. So double saves are hard, but they were always some of my favorites because I'm a smaller goalkeeper. I feel like it's easier to get up. I don't have such a big frame to get off the ground. So I think I definitely was advantageous in that. But when you're looking at some of these goalkeepers, I mean, I think Ochoa is still six footish. That's a bigger frame to lift off the ground. So they're not easy, but all you've got to do is kind of just throw yourself at it. And I think if you get out your head and you just think about getting anything on top of the ball, a save's a save at the end of the day, whether it hits you in the face, whether it hits you in the chest, or whether it hits you in the hand, it's a save.
Yeah, and that's where a goalkeeper who kind of thrives on feel like Ochoa he's just reacting. He's just feeling the moment and making those kinds of plays. That's what he's been known for. All right, I'm going to end with this one. I'm going to ask you this. So I understand the trepidation about tomorrow night and the result. Let's say Atlanta gets a good result, and a good result could be a draw. A good result could be a 2-1 loss. What will Atlanta do to get that positive result?
I think they'll be smart playing out the back. It's going to be a different sort of game. It's going to be... They need to not create any errors for themselves. And this is my thing. When you look at the goals we've conceded so far, you have to wonder how many of them were truly preventable. And I think it's a lot of them, whether it be from a stupid free kick giveaway, from not closing down players. We have to do everything possible to avoid conceding goals that are preventable. I'm okay with us going down on a screamer, going down on an incredible, tippy-tappy goal. But when you concede goals that you could have changed something and avoided it, that's what's going to be frustrating. So I think it's about making sure those passes are crisp, that they're weighted correctly, and pacing yourself. It sounds crazy, but if we go out all guns blazing in that altitude, it's going to fatigue. We have to remember it's a 90-minute match. If we go in at halftime 0-0, great. But you have to remember to pace yourself because that second half is going to be crazy. We're going to need to use our substitutions correctly. So I think it's about pacing yourself and being smart with the ball and not being afraid sometimes to go long and ugly. Like if you're tired, one of the best ways to just get rid of the ball, and reset. Don't be playing around too much when you're fatigued because that's going to be even more exhausting for those players.
It's going to be a battle tomorrow night. It's a late kick. It will be 5 Stripes after dark, and hopefully you guys will be watching on FS2 on 2DayNA or listening to us on 92.9 The Game. Thanks, Jess, and we'll be talking to you next week after this match, after Kansas City, which is going to be a difficult league match on the weekend, and then getting ready for leg 2 of the quarterfinals.
Looking forward to it. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Jess. We're going to take a quick break and reset for hour number 2. We will be right back after this.
It may not require a textbook, but it's filled with valuable lessons. It may not take place in a classroom, but it's an ideal environment for learning. It may not involve a diploma, but it can help prepare Georgia's young people for life. It's high school sports. High school sports can play a critical role in a student's overall education. In fact, studies show that students that participate in high school sports are more likely to enjoy greater levels of achievement in their academic lives. If you think high school sports are only about competition, think again. Better yet, think about attending a high school sporting event in your community. You'll be amazed by what you see. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man. You, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, March 10th. A cross-country edition of the show. I'm in Mexico City. We're heading to training later today. Atlanta United getting acclimated a little bit to the Estadio Azteca early this evening. And we'll have some coverage for you on, I believe it's going to be on Atlanta United social media channels, so be on the lookout later today. They'll be tweeting, all of their arrivals and stuff like that. But I think Mike and I will be speaking to you on that as well. We'll also be over on the either our Facebook or Twitter, or on the 92.9 The Game Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. We're going to keep you guessing. That's what we're going to do. You got to follow them all so you're ready whenever it happens.
Subscribe to them all.
Yes, because we might pop up wherever today. We'll be talking to you at different points in the day. It's going to be a really, really interesting match. Just the more that I kind of dig into it and the more that I look at this, it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge, I think, just honor to be in this position if you're Atlanta United. And when you look at getting the chance to play a heavyweight like Club America, I mean, Atlanta's been in the situation the last 2 years in CONCACAF. You saw Monterrey last time around. Now it's Club America at this stage. And you can curse the gods of the CONCACAF draw all you want, but you have to play what falls in front of you. And it's not going to be easy. It's another one where Atlanta United could play well and still fall. And with the injuries for both teams, it's a very difficult one to predict. What I do like about this is you've got a little bit of history this time around because of Campeones Cup. And Club America wanted to win that trophy. They did not. They're not happy about that. That's going to add a little extra spice to tomorrow, and I think where it's really going to come out is in that second leg in Kennesaw in front of a raucous home crowd, because it will be a very home crowd. You look at what New York City and Tigres are going to face. They're playing at Red Bull Arena again, New York City. That match is tomorrow before Atlanta and Club America, and only the lower bowl is open, and it's sold out. But the concern is that it's going to be full of Tigres fans. Because, I mean, this is a tough situation for New York City. They're not in their home venue. They're not anywhere near their home venue. And their fans have not necessarily been happy about this situation. And now, because of that, you could get a scenario where there's 10,000 people there, but it's 7,000 or 8,000 for Tigres. And it's going to make a home leg turn into an away leg. I don't see that happening with Atlanta United and Club America in Kennesaw. It's going to be a very hometown kind of crowd. When you take a Campeones Cup game, when you take whatever happens tomorrow night at the Azteca, and then you go for the next one in Kennesaw in front of that crowd, it's going to be a powder keg kind of atmosphere. It's going to be amazing.
Yep, and looking forward to the 17 showing up and showing out in there in Kennesaw. And honestly, when that second leg pops up, I mean, we might have to get hotels up there the night before, because getting there anywhere close to match time is going to be absolutely crazy. It's going to be one of the best atmospheres going into the fraction that we've seen. It's going to be absolutely fun, and it's going to be something that everyone who goes there, and folks who watch it and folks who just go to be a part of the experience and not necessarily go in the door, they're going to remember because of A, what it meant, and B, just the atmosphere in general as it's part of the history for Atlanta United as it continues to grow.
Now, the quarterfinals start tonight. Montreal hosting Olympia at the Big O. What do you feel about Montreal's chances? I mean, this is a winnable series for them. They get the underdogs in the round of 16, Olympia advancing past Seattle. That increases Montreal's chances, and Montreal has been able to consistently get results in 2020 under Thierry Henry.
Yeah, I'm still looking at injuries. I'm looking at quick turn. I'm looking at pretty much as close to a first choice starting 11 that you put out there over the weekend. Easter candy purveyors are out for this one. And Montreal is at minus 110. Your draws at plus 250, and Olympia's at plus 275. And where Olympia is concerned, for me, not intimidated by anything that they've been through so far. They're not going to be intimidated by the Big O under any stretch of the imagination. I think that they get, at the very least, I think they get an away goal. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was something along the lines of 2-1 Montreal by the time it's over.
I don't know. I'm starting to believe in this Montreal team right now. Now, the injuries are going to be difficult. You haven't really been able to rotate because you just don't have enough bodies to rotate, so you're kind of having to roll with what you have. We'll see if fatigue factors in a little bit. I do think playing on the turf at the Big O is something that will help the impact more because it's not typical turf, and Olympia could have some problems adjusting to it. That could help the impact. I would not be surprised if they win 1 or 2-0 and get out of there without giving up a goal. I do think they get out of there with a positive result. I don't think it's a draw. I don't think it's an Olympia win. And, with them getting the home leg first this time around, they have to put their stamp on this series in this match. And the fact that they were able to score 2 goals in Costa Rica, the fact that they were able to score 2 goals so far in their MLS matches in each of them, they're finding goals and they're finding ways to contribute on that end of the field. And the defense has been good enough with a number of injuries. If that can continue, they should get through Olympia and advance to the semifinals.
Yeah, and I think for Olympia, I think part of the key is making sure that Montreal doesn't get off to that hot start like they did down in Costa Rica against Saprissa. I think that, making sure that you don't lose sight of Montreal out of the blocks and that you have room where you can grow into the match. You have room where you can make things up in the second leg. So I think for me, the biggest thing is just making sure that they don't get 1 or 2 early and put you on your heels.
Let's talk about the early match tomorrow. We mentioned it, NYC and Tigres. So Tuca Ferretti has been asked about this. Tigres is not in the greatest of positions in Liga MX at the moment. They're in 12th place. Now, they're only 3 points out of the final playoff spot, and you're just over halfway through the Clausura season. But Tuca Ferretti was asked about this, and Glenn Crooks tweeted it out. If he had to compare the importance of CONCACAF Champions League and Liga MX, he said he would choose the league. I think a lot of that is defined by his positioning in the league right now. What that could mean is Tigres might have to sacrifice some players' availability in CONCACAF Champions League to maintain and advance in league play, because they are only 3 points back, but it's crowded at the moment. And that's where it gets tricky. Is Santos is also on 14 points level with Pachuca, who is on the same number of points as Juarez in 6th and Querétaro in 7th. Necaxa is on 11 with Tigres in 11th place. Puebla and Morelia are also on 11. Toluca is on 10, back to 15th. And it's Tijuana, Atlas, and Monterrey that are bringing up the rear and really struggling in the Clausura. Tigres does have a match against a playoff team right now in Juarez. They host them on the weekend in between legs of the series. So are they going to potentially send a squad of rotated players to New York, to New Jersey, to play in the match tomorrow? then play first choice against Juarez, and then play the fittest, best group they have in the second leg against NYC at home. I'm kind of thinking that's the way Tuca will play this.
Yeah, numbers out of our friends at Bet365. NYCFC to win, plus 160. The draw is at plus 250. They have Tigres to win at plus 155.
NYC is an interesting one because a lot of people are down on them at the moment because of how they've started in MLS play. I think you have to throw the Columbus game out because of an early red card. They battled and lost 1-0 on the road with 10 men for 80-plus minutes. They went to Toronto, which is a tough place to play, and lost 1-0. They've got to find the goals that they found against San Carlos. Tigres is not San Carlos. Tigres is a much stronger team than San Carlos. I think we'll get a very good sense of where NYC really truly is tomorrow night, because this will be a test, even if it is a rotated Tigres squad. It'll be a bigger test. They're, in air quotes, at home, and they need to find a way to get on the board. They need to find a way to get some goals. I'm kind of leaning draw in this one, to be honest, because of just the questions about both teams. You don't know exactly what either one's going to look like. NYC, are they going to be able to produce? Are you going to maybe change it up top and give Castellanos an opportunity instead of Hebert? You're going to try to find a way to play them both, something to shake up the attack a bit. I wonder how adventurous Ronnie Dylo will be with his tactics in this one.
Going by correct score and picking perfectas and things like that, the score that is the lowest number at plus 550 is the 1-1 draw. If you look at your goal total posted at 2.5, the Easter Candy purveyors are kind of hedging their bets. The over at minus 118 and the under at 2.5 at minus 106. Both teams to score at minus 150.
It's going to be fun. Scotiabank CONCACAF Champions League CCL fever continues on starting tonight. All right. Something we've got to talk about. The coronavirus outbreak is starting to get very, very impactful in the United States and the world of soccer as a whole. San Jose, I believe it is the county that San Jose sits in.
Yes, Santa Clara.
The Santa Clara Public Health Department has ordered a ban on gatherings of over 1,000 people. The Quakes are set to play at home on March 21st. The idea, I think, with the ban, from what I've seen so far, is that it would be reassessed at the end of the month, which would be after that game. We've talked about this on Soccer Over There as well, with some leagues, and you're going to see UEFA Champions League games played behind closed doors this week. You're going to see other leagues play behind closed doors. Germany has come out and said that they would play behind closed doors before postponing matches. The MLS is in a different position because gate revenue, game day revenue, is a bigger chunk of the overall pie for Major League Soccer teams than it is for teams in other parts of the world. It's a different conversation that MLS would have than the NBA or Major League Baseball because of that. The revenue streams are different. And I think we'll get a sense of where MLS stands on these things with San Jose. Now, things are changing by the hour, period. But they could change dramatically between now and March 21st, between that scheduled game. It would not surprise me if the idea on the MLS side is to postpone that game and reschedule it for later than to play it behind closed doors or play it behind a limited crowd. I would expect that to happen because match day revenue is just such an important part of the MLS revenue stream. I don't think they can afford to play games behind closed doors on a regular basis. I don't think they want to do that and hurt their clubs financially when there's other ways to deal with it in the MLS sense. Germany's different. England would be very different. Champions League in Europe is very different. But MLS could be on the postpone and reschedule side of it.
Yep, and we're on the MLS scale. I think that looking at what Santa Clara County has in mind, obviously, all the other teams in MLS are going to be keeping an eye on what's going on. Nothing has been said here locally about any sporting event on any level, but it's going to be literally case by case basis. So keep an eye on your sports, keep an eye on your favorite teams. But there has been the unified announcement that came out yesterday where sports leagues were going to deny and restrict access for media into locker rooms. And so that's the first stage in all this, and just keep an eye on things going forward.
FIFA announced Monday that all 2020 FIFA World Cup qualifiers in March and June in Asia have been postponed to an unconfirmed future date. So that's another one. And there are players in Major League Soccer and USL Championship, I believe USL League One, that could fall into these teams that were going to be missing players, or players were going to go play on international duty. Now they're not. So it's all, like I said, it's changing on pretty much an hourly basis. So stay tuned. There's really no way to predict where it's going to go. It's just impossible.
We have a couple of tweets and continuing news out of Richmond this morning, at least on my end. I know that you probably have some things on your end as well. Where would you like to go?
Well, what is that news? You can't tease news out of Richmond and then leave us hanging.
Okay, well then I won't tease news out of Richmond and leave you hanging. New kits and sponsors for 2020. And kits are looking pretty sharp. In addition to the renovations to City Stadium, there's been a renovation to the kit, and it is absolute stone design marble and granite on the front this year. Bon Secours, Elephant Insurance, Adidas returns as the uniform provider for the Kickers. Red primary kits, white secondary kits, looking pretty sharp out of Richmond.
Good stuff. What do we have on the Twitters?
All right. Dolly Five Stripes, in listening to the segment with at Just Talks Footy, agrees that Adam John worked his balls off! The first Barco almost goal was space created by John for Barco to run into. Looking forward to hashtag CCL Fever tomorrow night.
I believe the official term is bollocks, sir. I think that's what's been coined here from Frank DeBoer. He likes that word these days. And, yeah, I agree. Adam John worked very, very hard. And even when he didn't see the ball, he opened up space. And that's what a forward has to do. Because sometimes the way the game plays out, they don't see as much service, but they have to contribute in different ways. I thought Adam John did. I hope that you can find it, and it's, again, on the fly, because you're just not able to get a whole lot of training sessions in and work through this. On the fly, I hope you can kind of figure out, okay, a little bit more of where he likes the ball, where he wants the ball, what his run's going to be, how you can use him a little bit differently than Joseph Martinez or other forward options that Atlanta United has now. Adam John can open things up in a different way, and hopefully that will be recognized a little bit more. But if it's not, he still has to work hard and contribute, and he did that in a big way on Saturday.
Question for you, since you have followed game far longer than I have. Should your defender be an artist as well?
Defender's a broad statement. I think outside backs have more opportunity for that because they contribute to the attack more and they're in less risky spots. I think when a center back is that, it can be a little scary. And it's probably not something that most coaches would want to suffer the heart palpitations with dealing with. So I think an outside back, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Roberto Carlos, Dani Alves, I mean, you can go through a ton of different names. Those are two that just pop to mind immediately. Yeah, you can have that on the outside, but in the middle, less of that would be what most people would probably be looking for.
Okay, because the reason that I asked that question is Kefsey came in as we were talking about artists and positions, and because I left artist defenders out of the discussion, Kefsey says, artist defenders are looking at me, meaning at OSG Nelson, wondering why they're left out of the conversation. Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Roberto Carlos would look at you, then he'd hit a free kick that swerves the other way than you expect it to and clonk you in the head. That's what Roberto Carlos would do.
Okay. Just checking. Chris Hutchison, who has now coined the new name Frank DeBollocks for
No, that's not
the
good.
head coach of Atlanta United.
No.
Also agrees with Jess about sending a couple of guys like John and Mulroney to, quote, bump into, end quote, Ochoa prior to taking the corner.
Look, the dark arts are real, and in games in CONCACAF, you've got to experiment a little bit with some dark arts, and that's part of it. Can you knock a guy off his game a little bit? You're going to have trash talking that'll happen. These Club America players, they all know Pity Martinez. They know what he did at River. River is a worldwide club, and it's huge in Latin America. They know Pity. I think they're starting to know Barco. The question we had coming in would have been interesting to see if Joseph Martinez was healthy, what the reaction would be to him, because I think Major League Soccer in Mexico is growing in stature and respect. And while a player like Pity has that respect and that stature due to his time at River, Joseph hasn't played at major South American clubs. He's Venezuelan, which isn't a powerhouse nation in South American play. I think his respect would all be from MLS, and I wonder how it would compare. But Pity will get a superstar reaction from the crowd, but also from, I think, the team. And you're going to see Club America players try to take him off his game. So Atlanta United's going to have to be a little scrappy, a little difficult. And if there are some dark arts engaged upon, then, that's the game.
When we were talking about goalkeepers in their 30s, Memo Ochoa being 34, Michael Valverde comes in this morning and says that his favorite goalkeeper ever was his dad in his late 30s, guarding a makeshift net in a field near my house. His technique was love.
Well, that's very good. I like that.
That's very cool. It's very cool. It's a good drop from Michael this morning. We are caught up on Twitter, sir. What else is on your mind?
A little bit of news before I go get some lunch, I guess. Well, it might be brunch. Time is weird. I'm all out of whack. But I'm hungry. I know that much. So we're going to cut it a little bit short today because we'll have a bunch of other stuff coming from Mexico the rest of the day. You got an injury update out of DC United. Stephen Goff, Soccer Insider on Twitter from the Washington Post. Ola Kamara, Joseph Mora undergoing MRI exams on suspected hamstring strains. Chris Seitz, backup goalkeeper, is out with a quad injury. Donovan Pines, ankle injury. Ulysses Segura, groin injury, are training. But Ola Kamara being out, and you've got some problems up top for DC United because they are a very thin roster at the moment. Let's see. What else do we have? Pablo Piatti is training with Toronto FC today. That's big because he's been injured, and we haven't seen the new designated player just yet for Toronto. And look, they got 4 points. They've been able to get some results without him, without Michael Bradley, and that's very key for their chances of success this year. New York Red Bulls have added to their squad Jason Pendant, a French left back, 23 years old, is joining from the second division in France. This is a player who's been linked with the Red Bulls for a minute. So second division in France, it's a little hard to judge how that player is going to come in and be successful. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but the Red Bulls system where they are pretty defined in what they're looking for, sometimes they can identify guys, and also with Red Bull Salzburg and RB Leipzig scouting in Europe, you've got, I think, a pretty good backup of information on European players. But you also are looking for very specific types of players. So, second division in France might not get you excited, but you would think that he is going to be a fit for the Red Bull style, which is very clearly defined. And a player that you would think probably that Salzburg was looking at least at some point, and is able to pass on some scouting notes. So keep an eye on Red Bulls adding a left back. CM de Jong, the number 10 we think that Cincinnati has been missing. He has arrived. He is training for FC Cincinnati today. They've been trying to get his paperwork done and get him into the group. He will add an element to that team that I think already is pretty decent. Defensively, there's still some questions, but it's been better. This team in the attack, I think Locadia is talented. I think Kubo is talented. I really like Regaton on the right side. We only saw him as a sub on Saturday. If you get De Jong underneath that, pulling the strings with Medunjanin and then Alan Cruz, this is a really good front six. And it's going to be the back four and the goalkeeper that I think define how far they can go. But you add this piece to an already good piece, and Cincinnati is going to be a very interesting team to watch.
One more from Twitter from James McClatchy and a note from CONCACAF on my end before you go grab a bite. James McClatchy says, re the Joseph injury. If after surgery he's out for the year, given the importance of Atlanta United to the league, do you think the team could appeal to the league to sign another DP?
No, that's not going to happen. You can't change the rules. We saw, LA Galaxy are important to the league, and they wanted to keep Giovanni Dos Santos, and they ended up having to buy him out and let him walk. So, it's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. That's not fair. That's not fair to a top player for Houston who gets hurt and is out for the season, and they're not as important to the league. So, no, that type of stuff should never happen. I do think that this will create some conversation about potential rule changes and ways to, have this be less of an effect. But it's not going to be something immediate. It's not going to be something that a rule is changed specifically for Atlanta. I think it's going to be just a conversation that can affect future rule changes, not immediate dispensation for Atlanta United. It should not. That would not be fair to the rest of the league.
And notes out of CONCACAF this morning, May 8th through 13th, it has been announced that the Dominican Republic is going to host the finals of CONCACAF Caribbean Club Championship. And that regional club championship, you have those teams squaring off against each other. The 5 will go participate, and the playoff winner participates in Scotiabank CONCACAF League. 5 teams that are involved: Waterhouse, Arcaje out of Haiti, Club Atletico Pantoja will play fellow Dominican Republic side Cibao, and then the playoff match involves the Caribbean Shield champ, which will be determined. So those 5 teams will determine who gets the shot in Scotiabank CONCACAF League next time around.
MLS has announced that the All-Star Skills Challenge is returning, and I thought that was actually a pretty fun event last year.
Yeah,
where you had
cool.
The All-Stars, you had Atleti with a group of players, and you had Orlando with a group of players, and created some fun TV, some fun social media. It's back. It's going to be MLS versus Liga MX because that's what the All-Star game will be. They've added some new elements to it. I support it. I support this completely. I like it.
Yeah, it was fun stuff. It was fun to see the guys, and then I think it was who was it that had the buzzer beater? Was it Nani who had the buzzer beater for Orlando in one of the competitions?
Yeah, I think it was. I think that's what ended up winning it. So it was fun. That'll be something during All-Star Week to look forward to. Add a Legends game. Add a 5v5 Legends game. Legends of MLS versus Legends of Liga MX. That would be a blast because you'd have some that would cross over back and forth, but that would be a lot of fun if you can get some guys 40 and up and get him out in a 5v5 situation and play it futsal style or however you want to modify it. But that would be a lot of fun. So MLS, add this, please. Make it happen. A couple more nuggets before we go. The Sporting win over Houston was on Fox Sports Kansas City, and it posted their highest rated Sporting telecast in the last 4 years. Highest rated Sporting Kansas City telecast in the last 4 years. So a lot of excitement about a Kansas City team that, one, is playing really, really well and has added players like Alan Pulido and Gadi Kinda. So things are buzzing in Kansas City right now around this team. They've also added former Atlanta United player Jacob Peterson on color commentary with Nate Piccati and Carter Augustine. So Kansas City TV ratings are very, very good. We will see how ratings continue. I think the ratings were actually pretty good nationally for Portland and Nashville. Looks like they beat a beat one of the NHL national games. So maybe things are picking up a little bit. Maybe some of the old school insults and criticisms can start to fade away just a little bit. Just fade away and push off into the background. One other bit with U.S. and Mexico, the Nations League semifinals have been booked, and Mexico will be playing in the large venue in Houston, Texas, and the United States will be playing in the smaller venue in Houston, Texas. This is CONCACAF booking it. I think some people might get bent out of shape thinking that this is U.S. Soccer booking it. No, it's CONCACAF booking it, and it's all about the Benjamins. And Mexico will win you more Benjamins because they will be playing in the what's the NRG Stadium. I was trying to remember the sponsor because it's changed a couple times. And U.S. and Honduras will play at BBVA Compass, home of the Houston Dynamo. Capacity 22,000. NRG can seat up to 72. Those games are going to be both on June 4th. It's a double header, but in different venues.
Okay, because all about the Benjamins, and what I want to see what the crowd looks like for the U.S. game. I mean, we know that 9 billion people will be there for the other one at NRG, but I want to see what the crowd's going to be like at BBVA.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they didn't do a doubleheader in the same venue, but this is the way they're going to swing it. So I am curious to see how it looks. There's a lot coming out. There was a lot that came out overnight in filings that have now been made public in the U.S. women's national team battle legally with U.S. Soccer. A few people have been able to dig into it. Jonathan Tannenwald, and I highly recommend following the goalkeeper on Twitter, was up most of the night digging into it and pulling out clips and pulling out things. I will reiterate what I said before when all this kind of started to hit the legal realm. I am not a lawyer. I don't know the legal strategy of it. Maybe the U.S. Soccer Federation legal strategy is sound. Maybe they feel like they will win the case in the courtroom that way with the fight that they are making and some of the statements that have come out and some of the deposition responses from women's national team players that they've kind of used and twisted and turned. They might win the legal case. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I don't understand that part of it. I don't know if this is the right argument. I think it is the incredibly wrong argument in the long term in terms of PR. I think they are 100% taking the wrong approach to dealing with this. And they are 100% taking the wrong approach in not settling this before things like these statements that are now public are out there. It's a horrible look for a national federation that is not designed just to benefit the U.S. men's national team, not just to benefit boys soccer, but to benefit all of soccer in the United States and organize it and govern it and help it grow. And making statements that diminish the women's game, again, it might be a legal strategy. It's a horrible PR strategy, and it will not do them any favors, and it will ultimately hurt the federation. They didn't get this settled, and it will hurt the federation the more of these statements that are out publicly and the more of these quotes that are out publicly. It has been a horrific misstep by the U.S. Soccer Federation for things to get to this point. I hope that they realize that this is a bad look. I hope that they realize that some of their tactics, even in the last few days, releasing a letter saying that the Women's National Team Players Association turned down some kind of structure that was the same as the men and not giving full details, that was the CBA that the men signed in 2011, and they are negotiating a new CBA, and you're trying to pay the women the same amount that you decided to pay the men in 2011 and say that that's equal, but then not say anything about the men's CBA that is being negotiated now. There's so many things that just have a awful look to them. We can go back and forth all day about what amount should it be, how should it be divided up. There are some very difficult things on the women's side that the Federation has in some ways went above and beyond. I mean, putting players on salary, not relying on clubs to pay player salaries, that's a big investment on the federation side. Benefits and supporting the NWSL. Those are big investments on the federation side, and they can't be discounted. They can't be overlooked. They are big statements to what the federation wants to do, but then they undercut those statements and they undercut those investments by things like playing games in the PR world, issuing a statement a day before a game on International Women's Day. I mean, issuing a statement to say that you made an offer that, one, the Players Association has said they didn't make an offer, and two, it's not even a really correct or fair offer. It's just the federation has to be better. We should not be looking at the U.S. Soccer Federation as petty, and it's kind of feeling that way. It's feeling like a slap fight in this when it shouldn't be. The federation should be bigger than this, and the federation should be doing things the right way from the jump and not being forced to do the right thing from losing a PR battle or losing a legal battle. I really hope that some adults can get in the room and get this sorted out. I really do. The longer it drags on, the more it's going to hurt the women's game, the more it's going to be a distraction to the Olympics, the more it's going to hurt the NWSL, the more it's going to hurt soccer as a whole in the United States. It should not be dragging on like this, and I really hope that the federation can come to its senses, get in a room, and figure out what makes sense in this situation. If it makes sense for the federation to do everything completely equal between the men and the women, and that would mean salaries would be different because they don't offer the men salaries, and benefits would be different because they don't do that for the men because of the clubs do that on the men's side. If that's what they have to do, get something done that makes sense and move forward, and then figure out how to support the NWSL, how to support the unique situations that the women's national team players are in versus the men. The whole fight and the whole thing that's been brought up consistently about equal, that's not an easy term to define in this, and it's overshadowed things that are just being done incorrectly by the federation. That word has overshadowed so many things, like per diems not being the same. I mean, come on. There's no excuse for that. You know, things like dividing up the percentage of ticket sales, the money from ticket sales that goes into being divided up among the player pool, stuff like that. There's no reason why those things should be different. There are reasons why bonuses could be different. There are reasons why other things could be different. And there are decisions to be made about that. But there are also things that there is no excuse for it to be different. It's a very complicated situation. And one tweet, one statement, one deposition is not going to give you a full picture. That might be Carlos Cordero telling us to shut down. Any of those things is not going to give you the full picture. It's a very complicated situation, and it's going to require people dropping their egos, dropping their just stances that I think maybe they've dug their heels in the sand a little bit here on both sides, and getting in a room and moving forward for the good of the game, and honestly, for the good of future generations. And that's what scares me the most, is there's been so much progress for the game in the country, for the women's game in the country especially. Stop diminishing that with these types of silly back and forths, and now you're getting discovery, and now you're getting these things out there. There's some just things that never should have been public because it should have been handled before. So, U.S. Soccer Federation, please stop with this silly fight and get a deal done for the good of the game, because that's what you're ultimately there for, is the good of the game. This legal case, other legal cases, playing PR games by issuing letters publicly the day before a match, no, that's not what you're there to do. You're there for the good of the game, and most importantly, for all the kids that are going to be playing for U.S. men's and youth national teams and U.S. women and youth national teams. The ones that are starting out there, those are the ones that are going to be hurt by this ultimately, because it just keeps continuing and dragging on and putting a black eye on it. So stop. Get in a room, get it done, stop the posturing, and get this resolved, please.
The NWSL opened their 8th preseason yesterday. 2020 preseason rosters are out, obviously. Players on some levels have not reported because of, she believes, Algarve, Pinatar Cup, Tournoi de France, Olympic qualifying, and friendlies. But training camps are open. Season kicks off April 18th, and I co-sign everything that you just said, including following Jonathan Tannenwald at The Goalkeeper on Twitter. And if you enjoy his kind of coverage on social media, go ahead and if backing local papers and reading that as a part of your game as well, and you have the money, go ahead and subscribe to the Philadelphia Inquirer as well.
Yeah, that's a paper that I subscribe to because of their great soccer coverage, because it's a must if you're following the game in the United States. The NWSL opening training camp, that's what should be getting the headlines right now, not legal fights. Louisville launching a women's academy alongside their men's academy in the summer of 2020. That's what should be getting talked about right now. Trades around the NWSL, the season kickoff match on CBS, on big CBS. That's the types of things that are exciting, not these silly fights. So, Carlos, if that was you calling, please do your job and be the leader that you said you were going to be, and get this resolved and get it done and start moving forward, because there's no reason why it should be hanging over everything's head. So, with all that, that's going to do it. I'm going to go eat something. It's kind of in between breakfast and lunch, but I'm going to find something to eat. And John's going to be heading down here tomorrow after the show. So the rest of the day from Mexico, make sure you're following ATL UTD. Make sure you're following 929 The Game. Make sure you're following me, Longshoe. Make sure you're following Mike Conti, 929. We will have different things throughout the day, and we will be on site at the Estadio Azteca for training, for a press conference later this evening with Atlanta United getting their first look at the famous, world-famous Estadio Azteca. But for Soccer Down Here, that's going to do it. We'll be back in the morning. Time is still a little TBD, because now we're not just juggling like the time change for me. We're juggling the fact that the time change to get up and do the normal show, that would be a 7 o'clock start here. Yeah. Kickoff is at 8:30 something here, local time, 10:30 Eastern time, and it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a crazy day, and John's got a flight too. So I think what we're going to do is do a 10 o'clock start Eastern time, Atlanta time, and kind of split the difference a little bit and make it work. We'll probably not go for the full 2 hours because John has to get on a plane. And he will be doing some of the show from the airport anyway, so I think we'll probably be doing more of a 90-minute edition. That's the plan. So, but in all that, we'll have the predictions. So you guys will be looking out for the Bailey Daily poll. You'll be voting in that. We'll give you our predictions. We will be efforting Doug Robertson to join the show as well to give his prediction. And get ready for Atlanta and Club America quarterfinals. CONCACAF Champions League, the Scotiabank CONCACAF Champions League returns tonight. Remember, Montreal hosting Olympia. That will be one that I'll be keeping an eye on for sure. And then tomorrow it is NYC hosting at Red Bull Arena, Tigres, prior to Atlanta and Club America. So we will be talking to you tomorrow, probably around 10-ish
and
Atlanta
later
time. And later today. I'll be talking to you later today with Mike from various places in Mexico City. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.